Well, everybody, my name is Dave Ashheim. And before we get started, all of you probably have already used the chat window. We are very big on you guys and gals interrupting us with questions. It's going to be 30 minutes, so don't hold your questions to the end. Set your chat to everyone, because if you send it just to us, not everybody can see the question. So question us about anything that you hear. I'm Dave Ashheim. I founded a company called Engage Buy Sell. We have a division called Give Buy Sell that focuses on nonprofits, and we've been providing mobile giving solutions for a long time to nonprofits all over the country. And Mark, tell us about you.
Yeah, I'm the founding partner of Cathexis Partners. Started the company about 14 years ago, and yeah, happy to be here.
Great. All right, let's dive in. I'll tell you about our company, then Mark will tell you about his, and then Mark's got 5 or 6 or 7 thoughts that he thinks you all should pay attention to, and I'll kind of interview Mark, and that's how we'll get going. So if any of you folks have used mobile for carrier-based donations or credit card kinds of donations, that's what we've been doing. We're probably one of the biggest in the country. Maybe 1,500 or so clients around the country. Everything from screencasting and thermometers and text messaging. So any way to try to engage and make it easier for people to donate using their phone, that is really our expertise. Mark, on the other hand, you're a little bit more on the consulting side. Tell us about you guys.
Yeah, we basically, to sum it up, we help organizations find and use technology, right? So we're platform agnostic, and we just do software selection, implementation support, database management, cleaning, reporting analysis, website design and development, and all the things to bring in fundraising and advocacy.
Yep, and you guys have been around a long time, very highly regarded in the industry. I don't know how many of you folks are using consultants. Maybe even let us know in the chat if you've used consultants, but companies like Mark's company add so much value because you're wondering whether the Blackbaud application you have is the appropriate one, or how do you gather the right kind of data. And Mark, you were just telling me you guys are so busy because of staff turnover. Maybe some of you are facing that. Tell us about how that's affecting your business.
Yeah, definitely a lot of staff turnover with the Great Resignation going on. So you know, we're always here if organizations need us, and we're always just kind of a bat signal away.
Yep, yeah, and it's good to have an organization like Mark's kind of in your back pocket, whether you talk to Mark's company every month or once a quarter, just to run by things and issues that you deal with, and or when you have some of your senior people leave your organization. So Cathexis is one of the top companies in the country that does that. Mark, you've got some resources here that people can access probably from your website.
Yep, check out our website. We have a resources page with lots of different, we try to, do less on the sales side and more on thought leadership. So, hopefully there's some good tips in there. And if you ever need any help putting any of those tips into action, we're here for you.
Yeah, and I've read these, and our whole staff has on our nonprofit side, and they're great. So highly recommend you go pick up this off of the resources tab. All right, well, let's kind of dive into the meat. This webinar is all set up about what are you doing differently for end of year fundraising, and would love to hear from Jessica and Ella and Colleen and some of you in the chat window. Are you doing things very different this year because of COVID on the down compared to what you were doing maybe a year ago? So Mark, why don't you take over this slide?
Yeah, when you're starting to think about end of year, obviously you're thinking about your end of year communications. It may or may not involve Giving Tuesday, end of year appeals. How many communications are you going to send out, through what channels, right? Email, social, text, direct mail. and what's the focus of the message? What's the tone? What's the main theme that you want to have for this end of the year? But are you also thinking about how you're going to use technology to make all of that easier, right?
Yeah, and are you going to send more communications than you did in the past? And are they going to be through different channels? Would love to hear how you folks are kind of managing the messaging. And we're going to hit a couple of these points right now. So we're going to go through these one by one. Mark, do you want to do a little highlight on each one, and then we'll dive in?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of different things we could cover, but in the half hour, these are the ones we came up with. Put data segmentation. How are you segmenting your data? Are you doing dynamic asks? What does your donation form look like, and is it the most efficient? And is it bringing in the most potential donation? How is your reporting? How is your analytics going? And also text messaging, right?
Mm-hmm. Mark, I see in the chat window, Jessica is saying that she's planning on probably doing about the same that we've always done. Would love to see in the chat window, same kind of question for everybody on the call. How many of you are thinking of doing some things differently? What are you seeing, Mark, in general with folks? Are they thinking of doing something kind of radical or just little changes? What are you hearing?
Yeah, a lot of folks are trying to get back to let's blow the dust off of what we did, a few years ago, pre-COVID, because that was all a wash. And depending on what your vertical is, what your organization, your mission focus is, you may have done better, like a lot of food banks did, or you may have seen it go down a bit. But either way, communications and everything was different, right, during that time frame. So as we're getting back into it, what can we kind of reuse that we've done previously, but do it better knowing what we know now. And we see a lot of organizations really recognizing the importance of technology and taking advantage of automating as much of this as possible, and just making your lives easier while you're expanding your reach.
We had a comment, Mark, from Kelly Spalding, who said that we're cutting down on our direct mail numbers this year, a little more email, a little more social media and personal outreach. Love to see whether the rest of you folks are doing the same thing. Are you guys cutting down on direct mail? Mark, what are you seeing from your clients on the direct mail side?
Yeah, a little bit of a mixed bag. Some it's really successful. Others are like, yeah, let's spend more time and money and focus on social media or SMS. I'm sure you're seeing, Dave, a lot of text messaging going on. Obviously, that's your big area.
Yeah, I would say, Jessica and Kelly and the rest of you, the one thing we have seen this year over the past is just an explosion in the amount of nonprofits using text messaging. They're getting ready for Giving Tuesday. They want to start getting people to kind of pay attention to the messaging, and they're just concerned that their direct mail is not really working as well as it used to be. And email open rates, can be 20, 30%. We'll get into texting a little bit in a second, but I think you're right, Mark. It's just something to get above the fray. Got an interesting comment here from Colleen about direct mail with specific asks. That's great. We'll love to know, Colleen, and some of the rest of you, are you able to track some of your social media postings? And if so, is it Twitter or Facebook or Instagram? And how can you track whether that's successful or not? Let us know in the chat, and Mark and I will keep on going. All right, so the first one, Mark, was about data segmentation. And you guys are real experts in the whole data segmentation. As Mark's talking, go ahead, let us know how many of you folks really use this kind of data segmentation and tell us what that means.
Yeah, I think we actually have a poll for this, right?
Yeah, we do. I think that's right. So Anna has just set us out a little poll. And
because everybody, I think, segments to some degree, right? But how do you feel you're doing as an organization at segmenting your data? Are you really looking at it, and are you messaging the same to everybody? There's nothing worse than having just donated to an organization and then getting an end of year appeal to donate again. Can you at least acknowledge that I've already donated and maybe I can make an additional gift, or this is where my money's gone to, and beyond just the thank you autoresponder, but take it into that, so yeah, curious to see how this poll turns out.
All right, Anna, so let's end the poll and see what happened. I like that. We do a great job with the lowest percent, but I think that's probably right, because
that's fair.
At the end of the day, it's just hard to do list segmentation, but it's so darn important. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting time and money. What do you think of these results? Is that what you would have expected?
Yeah, kind of on par with what I was assuming, and we hear a lot from our clients. Some organizations are just knocking it out of the park. We go in and we have a look around at how they're targeting their messaging and personalizing, and I'm like, oh yeah, they've got it. In fact, let's steal a couple of these ideas and put it into our toolkit, right? But the vast majority are the ones that are, either. I'm surprised to see that we're not segmenting messages at all. I'm surprised to see that at 25%. It's not the end of the world. It's good that you acknowledge it, but definitely have to be careful about how you message folks so you're not offending people that have just given or whatever it might be. But the more you can, personalize and conditionalize your messaging so people are feeling like you know them and not just talking into the ether, the better you'll be in the long run.
So Mark, I've got 10,000 names on my email list, for example, and I'm in that 10% where I haven't done much. What's the first few things I would do to try to begin segmenting if I haven't really done much in the past?
Yeah, it depends on the focus of your organization, the missions that you have, but definitely, who's donated, who hasn't, amounts of donations, number of donations, recurring donors, kind of at that biggest level, but also maybe event attendees, right? Volunteers, advocates, and it kind of goes on from there. But just start kind of getting to know, and put personas to your constituents.
And when you mentioned, volunteers, for example, and advocates, would you suggest that everybody has different categories, different buckets, so the volunteers are getting different messaging than the advocates and so on?
And if not completely different messaging, because obviously that could take a lot of time, right? Maybe it's just adding in a conditionalized sentence or paragraph if they, send out an email to everybody, but if they happen to be a volunteer, put in there, a little message for them. Hey, thanks again for your efforts in volunteering this year, or maybe change the order of a newsletter based on they're a volunteer or not. Again, it takes a little pre-planning. Obviously, your platform has to support it, but most these days do. And if your platforms don't, then maybe it's time to look elsewhere, because it doesn't have to be an expensive endeavor to make some of this stuff work these days.
All right, that's the first tip from Mark on the data segmentation. Dynamic ask, it'd be interesting to hear how many of you are doing that. Maybe explain what you mean by dynamic ask, Mark, and then we'll see what the audience thinks.
Yeah, in this specific case, basically knowing who you're sending out to, they've made past donations to you. Instead of this getting a link to your standard donation form with the standard giving levels, they get a custom donation form based on potentially their last gift or their largest gift. You can, depending on the software you're using, but hopefully you can at least do it by last gift. And the lowest level, instead of being like standard 25, 50, 100 or whatever it might be, if they have previously given 50, maybe the lowest level is 50. The next level up is that last gift amount plus 15%, and then round it off to $5, and then the next level is plus 25%. And from there, basically knowing who your audience is, allowing the system to know who your audience is, and ask to give the right amount. I mean, I'd hate to ask someone that gave $500 last time to just give 50 this time,
Yeah. I would love to know in the chat. We know everybody how many of you are using this dynamic ask? And if so, let us know how that's going. Marcus, how complicated is that to organize the email campaign or the SMS campaign using this dynamic ask? Do you have to have just a certain piece of software?
There's a variety of platforms. Most platforms that have built-in email tools or SMS tools these days have it built right in, so that you just configure a few settings. Here's a screenshot of one tool that you set up these levels, and again, if they come out, just if they're not in a logged in state, or if they didn't click on a link in an email, or click through on a link in a text message, then they'll see the default. But if they do come in through that known state, then it's all pre-configured. So you have to pre-bake it once, but it's not crazy to set up at all.
Is the messaging also different in the email, or is it just basically the link to the donation page where I'm not seeing a number lower?
Yeah, hopefully the messaging as well, taking it to that next level. Again, it requires that you have clean data, right? That you trust your data, and for sure that your donations are up to date. You don't have a big stack of them sticking off to the side that you need to enter, because of COVID, no one was in the offices, but your database is up to date, and that the last donation is actually entered in there, so you can, say, hey, thank you so much, for your gift on such and such date of $500, totally appreciate that. It's end of year again. Consider giving again. Please click on this link if you would.
Nice. Great. I see a few of you have been using it, so that is great. Let's go to the next point you wanted to bring up about form optimization. What is this, and why is it so important that you wanted to make sure that people hear about it today?
Yeah, a few different things. One of them is having the donors covered the transaction fees, right? Having that option. Again, it's platform specific. It has to be something that's built into your platform or can be added to your platform, but basically $100 donation, adding in the optional cover my fees, so that the organization gets the full 100% donation. So it turns into, in this case, $103.90. Quite often that can be configurable to whatever amount you want. Somewhere between 3 and 5% is what most organizations put in there, even if it doesn't necessarily cover all their transaction fees, just to basically see that higher transaction. And we find that if that box is checked by default, about 70% leave it, 70-80% leave it checked. And if it's unchecked by default, but it's there, we find that industry benchmarks are showing like over 40% do check it. So it's also, suggests leaving it checked by default, and people can uncheck it. But it all helps raise more funds.
This screen here is a screenshot of one of our mobile donation forms, and we did a little poll the last 60 days, and our clients were around 75-80% finding that they were willing to pay the processing fee, and some of them have moved this fee up to 5 or 6%, just because it's not only the 2.5% to credit cards, but it's all of the other administration kind of fees associated with
too.
The whole platform fees. And Anna has a poll question for us, so let's just take 20 seconds, everybody. How many of you are allowing your donors to cover credit card processing fees?
And we do really recommend that you consider this option. It really makes a difference. There's even some platforms now that are going into tipping in addition to that, so that the organization is charged less for the platform if the organization enables a tipping option. That can get a bit confusing, because wait, am I tipping and I'm also covering my credit card? I've got a lot of things, and I'm trying to just fill out this donation form. So it's a fine line between giving too many options and not enough, but we are seeing great results in that. And wow, that's great. Great seeing 3/4 of the folks out there are doing it.
All right. Anna, stop the poll and let's see. Okay. So like you said, Mark, it's about 3/4 of people are doing it. And those of you that are not, I think you'll find out that if you make it voluntary, 1%, 40, 50%, like Mark said, will probably do it. So that's just another 2 or 3% in the bank. Kelly says we've got a board member who's strongly against asking donors to cover fees. What's your feeling about that, Mark? What would you say to that board member if he or she were talking to you on the phone?
Yeah, I would say, definitely just get one of those benchmark reports that shows how much more is raised, and even do some polling of your constituents to try some A/B testing and get some feedback from them. If you could try it out for a minute and see if anybody, because no one's going to be offended. I don't think they're going to be offended.
Yep.
There's going to be few and far between, but I have heard that from others before.
Yep. And Kelly, you could pick a couple hundred people from your organization and do a poll through SurveyMonkey and just send it out just to say, we're considering this. How would you feel about it? Strongly agree, strongly disagree. And maybe that would convince the board that it would be an okay thing.
More than likely, the board member doesn't want to put any sunlight on the fact that there's processing fees involved, so they'd probably even be more opposed to having a survey. But then you can kind of pick apart the whole argument, I think, by bringing it up. Like, everybody realizes that there's processing fees.
Yeah, everybody does. Yeah, it's not a secret, and they all know it's 2.5–3% or so. All right. Let's, just for fun, everybody, take out your phone, and we'll show you an example of how this processing fee actually could look on a phone. You can scan that QR code, or you could text Henry to 56512. This is an example of one of our former clients who used this a year or so ago. And let us know in the chat window what you get. You should be getting back, if you scan that QR code, open in browser, you should get back, what Mark is showing here. And of course, everything that you see on this page, you can customize and change, and the logo and the image and the GIF and all of that, as well as, to Mark's point, down lower on the page is the option to ask for the voluntary contribution to the fee. So that gives you an idea of one of our services, as well as piggybacking on what Mark was saying about the credit card fee. All right.
And I like the movement in the header banner. It actually, has,
it moves a little.
So like a video that's very popular these days. People like the movement.
Yep. All right. One of our final slides here is kind of optimizing the donation form. What you saw here was a nice optimized form. Tell us about the need for that, and why maybe the form you've got on your website isn't always so great. And then let's talk about the monthly giving.
Yeah, so not only, can you consider adding the fee, but also, that recurring monthly giving, make sure it's very prominent, easy for folks to switch over. Consider having it automatically change the amounts, if it's a one-time. And, we have seen a lot of success with pop-ups. Like if someone does a $100 one-time donation, when they click, on submit or hit the next button, have a little pop-up that says, hey, would you like to change this to a monthly gift of $10 a month? So you're taking it way down how much they're giving but in the long run, that you're going to come out, with a lot more funds raised and a better relationship, hopefully, with that donor as a long-term donor.
We're finding when folks use this form that you see on the screen here, about 75% are picking one time, but 25% are picking monthly. And that amount is $100, maybe it's $50, $100, $150. But obviously the power of the monthly is pretty impressive. We've also analyzed how many people stay on the monthly plan versus canceling. And we're finding it's between 15 and 17 months is the typical. So if you can get 25% of your people to pick monthly, that turns into a very, very significant amount of money. And I think an awful lot of people would be willing to do a monthly gift. Maybe it's not $100, but if they love your organization, instead of doing $250, maybe I'll do $25 a month and I'll just let it run. In the chat window, let us know how many folks right now offer a very simple way that a person on a website or a mobile form can pick a monthly option. Would love to hear what you folks can share with us regarding your experience. All right. And
I love
then
this one.
tell
Yeah.
us about this one, Mark.
So, again, form optimization, allow people to pay, donate how they want to, right? Maybe it's PayPal, credit card, ACH, Amazon Pay, Venmo, cryptocurrency, right? The more options that you offer up, the better. Again, then you run into that making sure it's easy for people to get through the process, and you have to always look at your options and make sure that flow is as smooth as possible, but give them options and let them give their way.
Do you think that it gets confusing for folks, or they just gravitate to the one that they love, and they love GPay, so they're looking for the GPay?
Exactly. They're going to see the logo they're looking for and be happy that they can pay that way instead of having to go old school with a credit card, or whatever it might be. They have a wallet option, Venmo, what have you.
How many of you folks on the chat today are using a broad array? When I go to most of our client sites, Mark, I'm not seeing GPay, Amazon Pay, Venmo. I'm seeing maybe PayPal. So I'm just wondering, are folks really missing out because the 40 and under might be looking for this? Are you also finding it's a little bit more of a age demographic, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of that. Obviously, the digital wallets for Venmo, but I think I always hear a lot more organizations saying that they have an older crowd than really have an older
Yeah.
crowd. So yes, they might be older, but doesn't mean that they're ancient. I mean, I'm old, but I still have Venmo, right? I still have cryptocurrency. I'm not in the realm where I'm a big player in cryptocurrency, so I'm not ready to donate millions in cryptocurrency yet. But there are those out there, and I wouldn't necessarily pigeonhole them specific. Let them choose their way to give. And yeah, we are seeing lots of folks, kind of opening up to that. And I love, is it Allie who mentioned that we offer a monthly option?
Yeah.
And created a club. I've seen other organizations that consider it a subscription, using that kind of terminology,
So
membership,
good.
making them feel like they've hit the next level of engagement with you
Mhm.
by giving monthly instead of one-time donations.
Yep. Yeah, I think that idea of kind of you're part of a unique group, whether that's a club or a status or something. People love that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you're at the $50 a month level, then you're in that group, that club, that organization. It's pretty nice. In terms of optimizing your donation form, you talk a lot about matching gifts. I think that's an untapped resource. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be kind of a pain for those that know, a bit about it. Organizations, uh, definitely a lot of them, national organizations, Walmart, Google, thousands of organizations have these matching programs where as their employees give, they will match a certain percentage, right? Up to 1 or 2% or a dollar amount or what have you. And each organization, each company is different on what their policy is and what their process is and the paperwork. But there's tools like Double the Donation or HEP Data that are these third-party platforms,
Right.
service providers that help make that easier. So you can look up, do a search for the company you work for, see if they participate, how much they match, and what the process is to help streamline that a bit. There's still a bit of a manual process, but it's money, it's time well spent and money well spent in looking at these tools. In most cases, the return on investment is pretty overwhelming for folks that use these tools.
You might put in the chat window, Mark, the name of 1 or 2 of those that you've seen, so that if folks want to go research it. And I think what you're basically saying is that on the donation form would be a field, and I could type in Citibank or Walmart or whatever it happens to be. This third party will look it up and hopefully find that there is a matching program. And if so, what a boon for the charity to now raise another 2% or 4% because Citibank happens to match gifts up to so much money.
That's right. Yeah, and I just put the link in there. Double the donation. Hep Data is another one. I can look up theirs as well in a moment.
Mhm.
But I'm a big fan of Double the Donation and their 360 match program that they have.
Do they charge? How do they charge? Do you know, Mark?
Yeah, they have. I think it's an annual fee for that.
Okay,
And then yeah, it actually is on there. They have a pricing page right on their site.
great.
Anywhere from $1,000 a year.
Okay. And if any of you folks are using double the donation or something similar, let us know your experience in the chat window. Reporting. I wonder how many folks spend hours and hours looking at reports. It's sometimes hard to even get some of the reports out of the CRMs. But tell us a little bit about what your recommendations are as the campaigns are going on.
Yeah, just set them up and run them regularly, right? Not just at the end, but daily, weekly. Hopefully, depending on the platform you're using, you can log as soon as you log in. You can get dashboards that show you, gifts that have come in. Whatever you're tracking to, hopefully there's a dashboard that allows you to, upon login, see that. Quite often that might not be the case depending on what platform you're using. Other cases, you might be able to have a report set up to email you and other members of your team on a regular basis, reports. And again, regular might be daily. You get up, you grab your cup of coffee, you open these reports, you have a look, right? And then make sure you're looking at this ongoing, so you're finding any trends, either positive or negative, and adjusting the campaigns based on what you're seeing. Otherwise, you're just looking at data for data's sake.
Yep,
It's really
got it. And that's probably one of the services you folks offer too, is analyzing all of the data and the response rates.
Definitely.
One of the things we have found, Mark, is having some kind of live thermometer, whether it's at a live event or it just sits embedded on your donation page, has been so helpful for our charities, because people like to get the recognition and they like to see their name and they like to see that we're shooting for a goal for $8,000. If you want to see one of these on your phone, go ahead and scan that QR code. How do you feel about kind of automatic, instantaneous recognition? Does it really help?
Everybody wants to be recognized, right? And that's kind of the theme of our entire conversation is, personalized segments. So when you're emailing folks or you're texting folks or communicating with them, and however, they know that you know who they are. And on an individual basis, on a transactional basis, being able to, see my name at a live event or on a virtual campaign that's on a website, see my progress meter, and that I'm on the list of leading donors, or even just, a scrolling list of, I only gave $25, but that's great. Went towards this $8,000 goal, and I'm one of many people, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Look at me, I got my name up there.
Yep.
And then there's like badgeification and gamification of other types, but yeah, all of this stuff, people love to be recognized.
We found that clients that used to just put these up for live events are now putting it on their website a month or two ahead of time, because some people can't make it to the live event, but they want to get a little recognition. So maybe they'll donate now to get the ball going. And the only reason they're going to donate early is because they want their name on the screen, so that as it's scrolling, people can see their name on the screen. So
exactly,
I would suggest every campaign you run have some form of a live little measurement tool here.
100%.
All right. How about that? Kind of wraps up our slides. The one thing that we didn't talk too much about is the use of text messaging. And just to make a plug for texting in general, if you folks are not using texting to kind of bypass the issues with email and direct mail, let us know and we can set you up with a little pilot account, because I think once you start using texting, it really cuts right to bypassing kind of the noise of people not reading their email. So one of the biggest successes we have seen with our clients is using texting as a new form of engagement. All right, so another minute or two for some questions from anybody. All right. Colleen wants to know, how much is too much? How do you get people to opt into text messaging? In the beginning, Colleen, it's going to be a little slow going. You're going to probably get, 10% of your audience. But what we found is if you have um, a, um, a little sunburst or something on your website that says text in to join our list, and all of your email campaigns, they could click a link to add their phone number. You can have a little widget that goes on your homepage where they can type in their phone number. You will find a large percent of your audience loves you, but they're not reading your email. And those are the people that are going to sign up for text messaging. We have seen folks that start, let's say today, by Christmas, you've got maybe 15, 20, 25% of your audience has voluntarily opted into text messaging. And by another year, maybe that's up to 50%. And I think it's just because if I love the Nashville Symphony, I want to get their correspondence, but I'm not really reading it. I'm either lazy and I'm not reading my email, or it's going into spam. So I think you just have to realize that your messages, people do, if they sign up for email, they probably want to know about you folks. Texting, though, is the way that they will actually read it. So I think you'll be amazed at how many people, if you voluntarily let them text in, they'll do it. You are not supposed to upload a list of phone numbers and push out messaging unless folks have given you permission. Now, we have plenty of clients that say, you know what, we know this audience loves us and we're going to do it. But the carriers would say you really shouldn't do that. You should let people opt in. So that's your call, whether you want to take a percent of your audience and do that or not. But I do think that if you start to use the texting, you will find out that it will take a bit of time, but then you're going to get response rates automatically. I mean, the open rates on texting is about 92, 93%. And I don't know what you're finding what are you finding, Mark, with when you talk to clients about open rates for email? What are you kind of seeing?
1.5, 2.4, sometimes 13,
So
but they're also
terrible.
misleading now because they're higher than they were because of the Apple changes to the Apple server automatically opens them. So yeah, they're falsely high and they're way lower than text messaging.
Yeah. Well, you guys all know that if probably one or two of you during this webinar got a text message and you clearly read it because it was a text and you had to read a text because that's just what you do. But if an email came in, you might not read it at all. So anyway, so I do think that that's one thing that you might want to think about, Colleen, in terms of how much is too much. I think our charities that use texting are probably sending out one every couple weeks. You can also send a text that says, would you like to receive one text a week every month? And they could reply and then self-select. We have a question from Ella about tracking and seeing reports when using text messaging for donating. Yeah, you can see how many people have come in through various social media links or through texting or through websites. So it's pretty easy to kind of track where this traffic is coming from. Any other questions from you folks?
That's a great point. Having, you might just have one form, but having different source codes that show, hey, this was how they got here via QR code on a postcard. This is how they got here via text message. This is how they got here via email, so that you can track all that back to source.
Mm-hmm. Mark, you have a little promo. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, again, happy to help if you want to chat about what kind of challenges you're having with your technology, or if you're looking for new, or if you're on a specific platform and having some challenges. We partner with a variety of different platforms, and if we don't support it, we know someone who does. As you can tell from the gray hair, I've been here in this industry for a while, so I know a couple people, and we're of the ilk of, if we can help you, we will. If we can't, we know someone who can, and if you're doing great, we want to hear what you're doing. And so definitely, happy to chat. On the next slide is going to be my email address. Feel free to reach out. Happy to chat with you about what you got going on, and make some suggestions if you need any.
Yeah, I strongly recommend everybody take Mark up on his offer. There is nothing to lose. You'll just learn something. And on the texting side, if any of you want to pilot some text messaging or some of these mobile services we talked today, just let us know. We'll set you up with a little account. And here's our email and contact info. We will send you all the slides tomorrow, so you'll actually have the contacts. But if you want to make a note of that, just do, and then just let us know how we can help. Well, I think that wraps up our webinar. Thanks, Mark, for the valuable tips. And
Thank
hopefully
you.
you all learned something. And if any of you need some help, just let us know. We'll be glad to help. But that concludes our webinar, and thanks so much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, everybody.